Maybe if we make a good cake, people will like this pan. Yes, that does it. Why didn't we do this the whole time?
The fools. Welcome to Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD necessary.
We're the podcast that recaps all episodes of The Big Bang Theory. No spoilers.
So hop into your favorite spot.
Make yourself a grasshopper and enjoy the ride.
Hello there, Ryan.
Hello, Rob.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well today. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing because we just watched the Peanut Reaction. For any new listeners out there, we are Theoretical Nonsense, the podcast that recaps, reviews, and deep dives facts from the Big Bang Theory, which we call IQ points. As a reminder to everyone, this is Ryan's first time watching the Big Bang Theory, and I've seen the series several times. And Ryan has also been compared to Sheldon multiple times from different people, so we keep tallies on how similar Ryan is to Sheldon. Any updates on the tally?
Last time we had some fluctuation. Not too many points this episode. Some things I want to talk about. But we are standing at 20 points me being like Sheldon and 18 points me being not like him or being like somebody else. So it's leaning towards Sheldon right now. But I think that's mostly because it's like episode 14, that just there was a bunch that I was like Sheldon that really pumped it up. So yeah.
All right, well, it's neck and neck. We'll see what happens towards the end of the series.
We got a few more episodes left.
Yeah. Also, we have an Instagram account at Theoretical Nonsense Pod. We have a TikTok, which I haven't even started yet, so I might need a little help on that, a little bit of practice, but that's on the way. Also, feel free to email us any questions or anything or any superlatives towards the end of season 1. Our email is at theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com. And all this information is in the show notes. And also give us a 5-star review and we'll give you a shout out.
I think we got a new 5-star review since the last episode. It's no actual review, but a rating, right?
Yeah, we got a couple of them. I think the last time I checked, we actually had 12, and now we're at 14.
Oh, we are at 14. I was thinking the last I looked, it was 13. So it's moving on up in the world.
Moving on. I guess I haven't looked at it in a while.
14. Wow.
Yeah, so we're sitting pretty at 4.9 out of 5. So thank you, everyone. I'm glad it seems like we're doing a good job. So hopefully we keep it up.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, we have our very first guest on this episode. He's only 4 weeks old and has never seen The Big Bang Theory. I got my little one attached to my chest on a Bjorn. Say hi, Ryan. Okay.
Oh, he's gurgling a little bit. Yeah, I hear that.
So if you hear a little gurgle, I'm keeping him close to me so I can hear him breathing.
I know you guys can't see it, but I can see it, and he is adorable, I promise.
Looks like his old man. All right. No other emails, though. Back on, housekeeping. Didn't find any emails.
Keeping a look. I got the message that we've gone over 1,500 downloads, so we're getting out there.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Our soda water and your water.
We're recording a little bit earlier today than I'm used to, so I'm sticking with water right now.
Yeah. And I'm taking a break from drinking just so I can stay on my A game for the little guy.
It's for the baby. Think of the children.
Won't someone please think of the children? All right, well, what'd you think of this episode?
I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of IQ points, but I had fun with this episode. I laughed a lot, and I liked the character development. There were a few things with each of the characters that made me kind of think, this expands on their personalities a little bit. And, I'm thinking specifically Howard. there's a couple things I want to talk about that I find interesting in this episode. So
Yeah, I loved this episode. It's another Penny and Sheldon episode, and I really enjoy watching their dynamic. And I was able to find 11 IQ points.
11. Wow.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, some of them are a bit of a stretch, though, but
I think I had
I'm going to call it 11.
five, and then I had like maybe four or six, 4 or 5, 6 partial IQs, like really quickers,
All right.
small quickies.
Cool. A reminder, everyone, we're getting close to the end of season 1. So after this, we have one more episode, and then Ryan and I are going to do a season 1 recap where we're going to do our superlatives. So we're going to do favorite character, favorite guest, favorite IQ point. So if anybody wants to chime in, feel free to shoot us an email. Again, our email is theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com. We are talking season 1, episode 16, The Peanut Reaction, aired May 12th, 2008, written by Chuck Lorre, Bill Prady, and the teleplay by David Ghosh. And it was directed by Mark Sandrowski.
Oh, hey, yeah. So we open up at the Cheesecake Factory, and the guys are playing what they call Tresling. This is a mix of arm wrestling and Tetris. And I kind of wondered if, I like video games, and I'm nerdy, but I don't think you would see me doing this. I hate arm wrestling. I'm surprised that they even are performing a I can understand the intellectual match of Tetris, but the physical strength of arm wrestling, I'm like, that's not for me. I can't do it. I don't like it. No, sir.
It does seem a little out of character for them to even wanting to illustrate physical feats of strength.
Yeah. But, to each their own, and they seem to be having fun. And then Penny comes over and says, I was asked or told to ask you something. And they explain it. And she's like, no. Will you stop it? You need to cut it out. So, then.
Well, I actually got the first couple IQ points. Well, first IQ point, I took two things and then I just combined it into one IQ point.
What are they?
I actually specifically looked into Tetris tournaments and arm wrestling tournaments. I mean, there isn't a joint one. Tresling isn't a real thing, but I had to look it up, all for the podcast.
That's
it was
fair.
A quick Google search that it's not real.
It's not real.
But Tetris tournaments and arm wrestling tournaments separately are two very real things and two very popular things as well. So first up, Tetris tournaments. Apparently there's a really big one. It's the CTWC, the Classic Tetris World Championship. So it's a pretty big deal. It's hosted in Portland every year, Portland, Oregon, in the States, and it originally launched in 2010. So 2 years after this episode aired, this launched. Not that I'm saying Big Bang Theory was the cause of this tournament. Tetris has always been a very popular game. And if anybody's interested, today we're recording on November 27th. Today is the Benelux Cup Finals, which apparently is being aired on Twitch.
Ooh.
And then on January 21st and the 22nd, the Waco Championships are being aired.
Of Tetris.
Yep, and this is the Tetris tournament.
Oh.
So I wanted to look into what the rules were a little bit, because they were kind of it got me wondering, because I know in arm wrestling, you're not allowed to grab your other arm and try to pull the other person down. So Raj was trying to cheat in order to beat Sheldon. So it got me thinking, I was like, well, what are the rules? So rules for the Tetris tournament. So this is the CTWC, the Classic Tetris World Championship. So this is specifically the Nintendo Type A version of Tetris. I started looking into it, but I just chalked it up to it's the original.
The original.
Yep. Players
what we all know and love.
Yep. Players are allowed to bring their own unmodified controller. If not, the tournament will provide one. Players are put in front of a TV and a Nintendo set, and they play. Pretty much high score wins. The buy-in is $50, and the prize is $10,000. Not too bad for just playing a game that you really like. And fun fact about Tetris, Tetris comes from the words tetraminos, which is the geometric term for four connected squares, and Tetris, which was the creator's favorite sport. So that's how Tetris came about, and that's the tournament. So it's a very real thing. So for any avid Tetris players, it's in Portland, Oregon every year.
I forgot to look this up, but I was thinking about it when I was watching this, that I remember hearing that there are multiple ways you can play Tetris, and you don't, like, we are used to holding the controller in one, with your left thumb on the controller and your right thumb on the AB buttons, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as long as your controller is not modified, you can actually use the controller however you want. And I've seen like people doing it with the controller upside down and they just kind of pound it. And I've seen them like hold
And they're
it.
good.
Yeah, it works apparently. It's from what I've read, it's competition legal if you know what you're doing. I've seen it where they hold the controller like a 90-degree turn, so it's perpendicular. And everybody kind of has their own thing. But the thing is that our typical way with the left thumb on the D-pad and our right thumb on the AB, it's not necessarily the best way. Sometimes you think outside the box, and getting those bits down as quickly as possible means more points.
I'm really curious about how like the top players play then. I should watch a video. It's all over YouTube if you're interested.
That one with the where the guy turns it like upside down and like taps it was like just blew my mind. Like I don't even know. I don't understand it.
It's a
But
partial mental game because he does that and it's like, yeah, what you got? Psych everybody out.
bum bum bum. I don't even have to look and I win.
Well, moving along into arm wrestling tournaments. Yep, there are tons of these throughout the entire world. There are leagues and just other tournaments. So the most prestigious seems to be the World Arm Wrestling Championship, hosted by the World Arm Wrestling Federation, which was established in 1977. And I tried looking at the rules and everything, but it was pretty long and I didn't really care that much. So I kind of just skimmed through for like some highlights.
Yeah.
It was 16 pages long, so it's like, oh, I can't read
Wow.
this.
They've been
But a
doing
lot
it
of
a
the,
while. One rule a year. They just keep
yeah,
adding.
yeah, it's been like I said, it's been around since 1977. So arm wrestling is a pretty big thing. Yeah, I remember kind of scrolling through ESPN growing up and just seeing that. And I was like, what is happening? But here are some of the highlights that I scrolled through. There are different events for lefties and righties. And the definition of an arm is defined as the portion of the body starting from the shoulder and continuing on and ending at the fingertips. And then the vast majority of the rules in the book were more about sportsmanship and anti-drug enforcement.
So like no steroids or
Yeah. Regular drug testing, all that other stuff. How many people on a team, blah, 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 and stuff like that. And the one that I found interesting was hats with brims are not permitted.
huh.
I'm
So
not sure why, but
beanies are okay. Sock caps are okay. But
there's a brim, no go.
no top hats. No. This is my gentleman cap. I always arm wrestle in my gentleman cap.
It's how we prove to the world that we are above everyone else in class.
Yes, we are classy.
But that's what I got.
Interesting. Good IQ point. Good. So we then kind of changed the angle over to the theme of the episode, birthdays, and Penny's taking over a piece of cheesecake and singing happy birthday to some fellow customers at the Cheesecake Factory. And
A very sad looking cheesecake, by the way.
it was horrible, right? It was very
Yeah.
sad. If I got that, I don't know, I guess
I'd be a little bummed out. Plain cheesecake with a raspberry, what's it called? Like just sauce.
syrup or
I was gonna say
something.
something. I was gonna say something a little fancier, but I can't. Like the term isn't coming to me.
Raspberry aw juice. I don't think it's called that, but so she's singing happy birthday, and Raj and I sometimes am putting Sheldon as Shelly in my notes now because the previous episodes he been called Shelly. Um, decide to call it a stalemate because Shelly says Raj has the upper body strength of a Keebler elf. And Raj goes all in and tries to tackle him with two arms and still cannot make Sheldon budge. So he gives up and they do get a stalemate.
I would
Then
imagine that Sheldon is physically the strongest out of all of them.
really, I really thought Leonard would be. I thought it'd be Leonard, Raj, Sheldon, then Howard.
I feel like since Sheldon is physically taller, he's like a little bit larger. So I feel like that's what would give him the edge. And I feel like there's a rage inside of Sheldon, which we've seen,
That's fair. That rage,
that will come out.
the hulking of the Sheldon, hulking out. You don't want to see me when I'm angry. I'm a Sheldon. So Penny comes over and asks if Leonard will be celebrating his birthday there on Saturday, right? Which I've never been to Cheesecake Factory on a birthday, but that seems not my cup of tea because, well, she says you get like a piece of cheesecake, right? And Sheldon mentions he's lactose intolerant, so Penny offers carrot cake and that he can scoop off the icing, the frosting, because of course that's cream cheese. And this brought me to my first IQ point. Did you do anything on cakes?
I did.
Of
Well, I
course.
did.
I was like, yeah, of
Not
course
on.
you did.
If anybody has been following this podcast, I will do my darndest to transition this into a food podcast. But what I did was I didn't do a general one on cake. I did it on what the Cheesecake Factory's offerings were that could potentially be dairy free for Leonard.
Oh.
Because I was wondering, it's like, what would he want? Granted, I guess I'm assuming that most of the cakes that they put on, or the non cheesecakes on there, are lactose free because when you bake at home, you could always add like buttermilk or butter or something like that to kind of make it a little bit more decadent. But I would imagine that the Cheesecake Factory wouldn't. It's probably more expensive that way too. So they
Yeah.
usually use oil. So when I went through the menu, there wasn't a section dedicated to dairy free. So a lot of their stuff actually does have dairy in it because they have like whipped cream or some sort of frosting and stuff like that. So realistically, Leonard could only have a bowl of fresh strawberries.
It's kind of interesting how much milk like gets added into things when we're not even thinking about it, like just dairy powder, milk powder here and there, for thickening agents or what, I don't know even why, but the crust I would imagine could possibly have dairy in it,
Or
even
lard,
the lard,
if Mrs. Cooper gets to it.
the raspberry odd juice. That sounds so wrong. I don't know why, but I think this is great because I'm actually thinking now, like, what is Rob going to do with cakes and try to take it a different way? So I did a little bit of history on the cakes that are mentioned.
Love it.
So do you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
Yeah, I guess I'll just finish off my thought on the
Huh.
Cheesecake Factory menu because, like I said, the only thing that Leonard could possibly have is a bowl of fresh strawberries. But then I cycled through the rest of the menu thinking, okay, let's just assume that the cake part is dairy free, that the only lactose is in the cheesecake. So I just
Hmm.
looked at the other items that are just not cheesecake. So Cheesecake Factory has Linda's fudge cake, warm apple crisp, carrot cake, which was offered, tiramisu, a chocolate tower truffle cake, and a strawberry shortcake. And that's all I got. So I don't know if I should really call it an IQ point, but I just am.
That counts. I think that counts, especially combined with my IQ. Our IQ points combined make one full IQ. So, so I did a little research on this, and the three I looked into were the cheesecake, the carrot cake, and the German chocolate cake. And I found most of this at mash.com. Um, and or some of it at Mash.com. Yeah, at Mash.com, I found that German chocolate cake. I think this is pretty important. That is not named after Germany. It is named after Sam German, who invented sweet baking chocolate. And that it wasn't till years and years later that somebody actually made a cake that we know as German chocolate cake and called it that. That cake became a staple, and that people often get confused thinking it has something to do with Germany, but it's just the guy's name who made the chocolate that goes into the baking of the cake. Now, with cheesecake and carrot cake from juniorscheesecake.com, I found that the earliest known cheesecake, and this predates both of carrot cake and German cakes, German chocolate cakes, quite a bit, is there's a kind of some form of cheesecake dating back to 5th century BC. In Greece and Greek tradition, and that this was basically more just the filling of a mixture of ingredients. But what we know as kind of the cheesecake tart with the crust that we've come to know and expect really didn't come until the medieval Europe. And I think I saw like the 1300s was kind of said that there's recordings of what we know and expect cheesecakes to be, and they've kind of developed over the years. And um, if you go to Cheesecake Factory, they have many different types, but I'm guessing that sad little one that she brought out was probably what they were eating in the medieval ages, just because, yeah, it looked really
A
sad.
slice of crap.
Yeah, exactly. It's just sadness on a plate. Ugh. And then carrot cake studies suggest that it comes from the Middle Ages, that it dates back to the Middle Ages. However, I'm guessing from what I've read, it was more like carrot bread, or like what we think of as cornbread, where cornbread can be sweet, kind of like a cake. So, kind of more like that. And that to really top it off with the frosting, the cream cheese frosting didn't come until like the 1960s, 1970s. So that's relatively recent. But carrot cake itself dates back, but not quite as far, not even close to as far as the very, very early prototypes of cheesecake, which is
That's pretty
sad
cool.
because I think German chocolate cake's my favorite of the three. So,
Well, on that note, did you do any research on recipes for German chocolate cake?
no, I didn't.
So I got to thinking about this because, like I was thinking before, a lot of cakes more or less can, or they don't always have dairy in it. A lot of
Yeah.
times it gets substituted with oil. I would imagine most commercial ones are with oil, but traditionally, based off like a handful of websites that I found, it's traditionally made with buttermilk. So
Oh.
as like a moistening agent to kind of make it a little, give it a little bit more body, a little moisture and everything, kind of like a red velvet cake too, how it uses buttermilk. But then if that's the cake, I was gonna say if that's the cake, if that's the
That's
case,
it takes the cake.
if that's the cake, then it's not lactose free, unless Leonard grew up having a version that was lactose free without the buttermilk. Then that means he had an inferior product.
Or very possibly lactose intolerance wasn't really identified. You know, I remember having stomach issues when I was a kid, and they never tested me for lactose intolerance. It was kind of
Actually,
something
yeah. I
that,
mean, they've said multiple times that that he just gets a little flatulent.
yeah. So I'm guessing that it might have been undiagnosed until he was older, and he was just eating it and getting stinky, right?
That's true. I mean, based off the stories that we hear about Leonard's parents, they don't really seem to care about him.
They didn't
So,
give him birthday parties, so there's that. Uh, I was going to say something or add to that, but I forgot what I was going to say. It'll come back to me.
you'll blurt it out later on in the episode. Cake.
Cake! I remember the cake! Oh, I do remember. I was going to look into like the most popular cakes, but that became really subjective, and like it's like each state has their most popular cake. Each year there's a different popular cake per state. But I found that chocolate is typically the most popular, And then like you go down through the list, there's like funfetti is a really big one. Carrot cake and cheesecake typically aren't on like the top five. One I don't think I've had pink champagne popped up quite a bit, and it seemed like a lot of the recipes that I did look at typically add either some sort of soda or jello mixture to the cake to uh, work with the texture, like you said, making it more moist or supple. Yeah, whatever. Cake like. And it reminded me of the best cake I ever had, although I like German chocolate, was a marble cake from the city I grew up in. And apparently the bakery closed down, and I've never had a cake like it, but it was the most moist, delicious cake. It was just amazing, and I'll never have it again. And it's sadness, but I always imagine they put a lot of lard, buttercream, and buttermilk and Jello into it because it was just so moist. It's great.
Yeah, man, you gotta. This reminded me of two stories now. So just last week we had a coworker. It was his birthday, so I found out kind of late. So his wife texted me on his birthday and was like, "Oh, by the way, it's so and so's birthday. Maybe you could help him get out a little early." And I was like, "Oh my god, it's his birthday. I got a little time. I'm gonna run out and get you a cake." So I went to the only thing the closest thing that I can get to was like the local grocery store, and the only cake that they had like for a sheet cake that could feed like 20 people was chocolate.
Uh-huh.
So then I was like, okay, everyone likes chocolate, that's cool. So I pick it up, I bring it to work, we surprise them, and then we cut into it, and everyone was like, at least 15 out of 20 people were like, ew, you got chocolate? I was like, what? Everybody likes chocolate.
Everybody likes chocolate. That's the go-to.
But everybody was like, oh, they didn't have
Wow.
yellow or white or anything. I was like, well, can beggars be choosers at this moment right now?
Seriously, and I don't know. I've talked to some friends about yellow cake, and I feel like it's what flavor is yellow cake? Is it like vanilla, just yellow, or
Yeah,
kind of batter tasting? I don't know. Like I feel like
I've
it's
always
a
gotten like a vanilla taste out of it.
wannabe cake. I'm like, either you
Yeah.
do vanilla and be white, or you do chocolate and you do the chocolate thing. But yellow is confusing. You do funfetti and you get all the
It tastes
colors in
like
it.
sunshine.
It tastes like sunshine. It tastes like disappointment, is what it tastes like.
Tastes like vitamin D,
Although I would take
but
it
not Sunny
over
D.
cheesecake, so it's got that, or
You
at
don't like
least
cheesecake?
I was thinking more the cheesecake that she took over to the people. But
Oh, okay.
all in all,
That's fair.
I like the first couple bites of cheesecake, and then it becomes like too rich, and I'm like, this is flavor overflow over. It's
Overload.
too much. Yeah, overload. There we go. It's too much cake, and yeah, it kind of breaks me down. But the first two bites are delicious, but then it's like this is like it would be like me sitting down and eating a can of frosting. I could eat a couple bites and it'd be great, but then it's just there's too much frosting.
I love it. I used to be able to just eat like frosting out the can. I know I'm disgusting, but it was
I
so
don't
good.
judge. I do my own things.
Well, the next thing I was going to say is one of the best cakes that I ever had. I might get some judgment on this one because it's like a national chain. I found this place because I was looking for a bakery that would actually do a gender reveal cake,
Uh-huh.
and this place did. So it's called Nothing Bundt Cakes. So they're bundt cakes, but like I've tried multiple flavors, and every time I'm like kind of blown away. It's like, man, this is super good. It's like just the right denseness, very moist. It lasts like you could have it day one, and then day like 10, it still tastes the exact same.
I
So lots of preservatives, but still delicious.
they add to the flavor, the
Yeah. Yeah,
deliciousness.
because I find that that place is better than a lot of the bakeries I've been to.
One of the tidbits that I learned during this research was that bundt cakes are named after the pan, I believe,
Yeah,
and
because
that
it's
the
always a circular with a
yeah,
hole in it.
with the home, and the pans were created by a veteran from I think World War II, and somewhere it said that they kind of like they were specifically requested by a group of women from a religious base and Zionist. I want to say I have to double check that, but he started creating these and selling them, and then like they kind of lost popularity, and he was like thinking about discontinuing them, and then a woman used it to build bake a what they call it, like a tunnel of fudge, and it's like a chocolate fudge bundt cake, and they cause the pans to become like a resurgence of popularity, and so we
So they were
made
making shitty cakes in the past, and then they decided to
apparently
make good cakes and brought it back.
it's like maybe if we make a good cake, people will like this pan. Yes, that does it. Why didn't we do this the whole time?
The fools.
The other thing I was going to ask is, would you consider ice cream cake to be cake? Because some sites said that was like the top cake, and I'm like, that's not fair. I don't think
Well, there is a layer of cake in it.
for some of them,
Wait,
because
are there actually versions that are pure ice cream?
Dairy Queen's ice cream cake has a layer of cookie crumble, but it has no actual cake in it.
Oh.
And then Baskin Robbins, I just got together with my friends. I was telling Rob this, that we had a Friendsgiving, and my offering to the Friendsgiving was a Baskin Robbins turkey ice cream cake. And it was an ice cream cake in the shape of a turkey and basically glazed with caramel to look like turkeys we know and love, and some frosting, but no cake in it. It was just like straight ice cream, frosting, and like coating.
In terms of naming conventions, I'm a little looser. But if I was USDA, actually, USDA won't care because there's no meat in it. So never mind then.
If we were holding a arm wrestling competition, we would have a rule for this. And I tell you what, there would be no top hats.
If this was an arm wrestling tournament, I got Tetris.
Exactly. Okay, so enough cake talk. That's what
all right. Moving on.
I love cakes. Penny mentions that she knows Leonard's birthday because she did his horoscope, and that she was going to do other people's horoscopes. But then Shelley went on a rant about Bertram Forer, who had a 1948 study, I guess, revelation experiment, yeah, on astrology and kind of superstitions in general. And I did a little bit of an IQ point on this one too.
I did as well.
What'd you come up with?
You want me to go?
You go.
All right. So Bertram Forer was a psychologist that created the Barnum effect, or the Forer effect, which is a common psychological phenomenon where individuals give high accuracy ratings to descriptions of their personality that supposedly are tailored specifically to them, yet which are in fact vague and general enough to apply to a wide range of people. He did this by giving 39 students a test, who were told that they would each receive a brief personality vignette based off their test results. 1 week later, Forer gave each student an, in quote, individualized vignette and asked each of them to rate it on how well it applied. In reality, each student received the exact same vignette. On average, the students rated its accuracy of 4.3 out of 5. So basically, everyone said, "This is exactly what describes me." Oh
this
my
is
gosh.
me. You know my soul.
Yeah, but then they all said the exact same thing, and then he had his ha moment and was like, "You fools! I gave you all the exact same descriptions, and you all said it described you." Whereas he actually found all of those descriptions from a newsstand astrology book. So he just went to a newsstand, grabbed an astrology book, pulled out some descriptions, slapped it on there, and was like, "That's totally you." And everyone was like, "That's totally me."
That's me. You know
and
me.
I did find a list. So it's a pretty long list. It's 13 things. So 1, you have a great need for other people to like and admire you. 2, you have a tendency to be critical of yourself. 3, you have a great deal of unused capacity which you have not turned to your advantage. 4, While you have some personality weaknesses, you are generally able to compensate for them. 5. Your sexual adjustment has presented problems for you.
What's that mean?
6.
Whoa.
I don't know, but it sounds like they got problems.
I mean, it sounds like me, but what does it mean? That's me.
This is totally me. This is describing my entire soul. 6. Disciplined and self-controlled outside, you tend to be worrisome and insecure inside. 7. At times, you have serious doubts as to whether you have made the right decision or done the right thing. 8. You prefer a certain amount of change and a variety and become dissatisfied when hemmed in by restrictions and limitations. 9. You pride yourself as an independent thinker and do not accept others' statements without satisfactory proof. 10. You have found it unwise to be frank in revealing yourself to others. 11. At times you are extroverted, affable, sociable, while at other times you are introverted, wary, and reserved. 12. Some of your aspirations tend to be pretty unrealistic. 13, and the final one, security is one of your major goals in life. So these are all very vague statements that could really describe anybody.
Yeah. Part of, I found pretty much the same stuff, and I was looking at the howstuffworks.com that mentioned that part of it is having vague descriptions, but also, it kind of mentioned having contrast within the descriptions. So saying something like you are outgoing, but you also hold with a lot within yourself, or you have a deep inner personality, but you can be outgoing if you need to.
Yeah, it was like this one. It was the introvert extrovert. You find yourself to be an introvert, but you're also an extrovert.
Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah.
That's both ends of the spectrum. So it's kind of the confliction that people are like, yeah, I can see both sides, and also that these things have to be stated in a positive manner. So instead of saying like you really hate people, but you can deal with them until you punch them, it says you're an extrovert, but you're also an introvert, right? They try to put a positive spin on it, even though it could be something maybe not so good. And the other thing I was adding to this was that it reminds me of hot and cold psychic readings. Do you know anything about those?
Is that like that one guy who had his own TV show or something that would actually like pick somebody from the audience
I
and
think he
then
did
kind of
some
like
talk on this. Yeah.
where it was like, oh yeah, like I need someone from the audience. Someone named Carla is calling to them, and then of course it's a generic name, so someone is about to. South
Starts.
Park did a great thing on that one. Did I
Yeah.
say Carla? I meant Kara. Kara? Anyone? Kara? No, no. I meant
Kyle.
Carl.
Kyle. Kyle.
Oh,
Oh no.
baby's waking up. Our little guest.
He's like, I don't like these readings.
I know. He's getting scared of the readings.
Hot readings are when the psychic knows a little bit about or knows something about the individual, but cold readings are when they know nothing about the individual and they have to kind of shut out the generalized statements and hone in on more specifics to make it seem like they know what they're talking about. And I see that as very, very similar.
1 second. Let's
Sure.
pause.
All right.
The monster needs to feed. And we're back.
Wonderful. So yeah, that is the IQ point on astrology and generalized statements.
Well, on Bertram 4, did you do anything on astrology itself?
No, I just went on that.
Okay, because I did a little bit more of a deep dive into this one. So I did the origins of astrology, and I also did a little bit on Sheldon and Leonard on what their astrological sign is.
Oh, nice.
So,
I didn't even think of that.
Well, from this, when Sheldon was actually like kind of poo-pooing on it, I loved how Penny just kind of shut him down and was like, yeah, typical Taurus.
Typical
blah, blah,
Taurus.
blah. But then I looked into when their birthday was. So assuming his birthday was the Saturday after this aired, Leonard's birthday would be May 17th. So then that would make him a Taurus. So then it got me like, well, didn't Penny just say that Sheldon is a Taurus too? Or was she? That I didn't really get, because it's like, wait a minute, I thought you just called Sheldon a Taurus.
That's
But
what
then
I
so
thought.
then I
Sheldon was the
actually
Taurus. Yeah.
I took it as that too. But then based off the calendar, so was Leonard. So then I just decided to Google search it, like, okay, when are the characters' birthdays? And it turns out, where is it? Let me scroll down my notes. So the article that I found said that Sheldon's birthdays is actually on February 26th. So he's not a Taurus.
What does that make him? He's outside
And I
Aquarius, right?
forgot and I forgot to write down what he actually is. So what
Good.
is
What is? Oh no.
Wait a minute, what is February 26th? Pisces.
Pisces.
So I did a deep dive into Taurus. So I made that connection well after the fact I wrote these notes. So I didn't do a deep dive into Pisces, but we can do that later if you have time. But for now, we could actually just look at where did horoscopes come from, and let's look at a Taurus and see if Leonard actually is a Taurus.
I'm really curious if this was an error in the writing, like they did this before they knew the actual birthdays of Sheldon, or if
Yeah,
it.
I could definitely see that, because
Yeah,
most shows are 5 episodes ahead. It's
yeah,
like they never know if they're going to be renewed or anything like that. So could have just been an error.
interesting. Good catch.
Well, horoscopes, also known as astrology, not to be confused with astronomy. Astronomy is a scientific study of the sun, the moon, and the stars, whereas astrology is the pseudoscience interpreting the supposed effect of the heavenly bodies on human existence. In early history, the two were closely linked. The sky is the home of many of the gods who influence life on Earth, so the patterns in the sky must surely reflect that influence. And this dates back to Mesopotamia and the Babylons from 3000 BC. And then even the Chinese lunar calendar, which has their own form of this, dates back to the 14th century BC. So it was then that the zodiac was introduced, which is the sequence of the constellations along which the sun and planets appear to move in their passage through the heavens. This can serve as a yardstick of celestial time if divided into recognizable and equal segments. 12 constellations were selected to represent these segments, many identified by names of animals. It was the Greeks that later provide the term for the zodiac when they describe it as the animal circle. The zodiac links constellations with times of the year, and the constellations have their own links with the gods. So scientific observation was blended with speculation about divine influence. And this is also when the Greeks made many advances to astronomy and astrology in the 6th century BC. And then also around that time, India adopted its own system of astrology too.
Mm.
So that's just in a nutshell, that's what horoscopes and astrology is.
I did pick up somewhere that Bertram Forer, was quoted saying that it's interesting that every newspaper in the country has an astrology section. However, none have a devoted daily or even weekly astronomy section. And so it's kind of I wonder if it would be more interesting if we had some astronomy in there too. Although, I would say for the most part, NASA gets their prestige when there's an eclipse of some kind or a blood moon or a whatever's happening. There always seems to be something happening. It's like there's not going to be another one for 5 years, and like next week there's something else that's not going to happen for 5 years. But
I like that kind of stuff.
I love it. Yeah. And
I grew up loving astronomy until I took a college level class, and now I hate it.
I remember I have an ex who asked me for an easy class, and I told her that astronomy 101 was easy. Like, I didn't study for it. I loved it. And, this was really an indication that different interests make classes easier for some people because, I aced it without even trying and I just loved the content. And she took it with the same teacher and struggled every single day and just like, I hate this. And I'm like, wow, yeah. But that's just intro, but it was funny that we had the same exact teacher doing the same exact class, and she hated me for even recommending it.
Yeah, I remember I didn't do so bad, but it required a lot of study for me. I'm definitely not a sciencey person. As
Mhm.
we've mentioned before, most of my favorite IQ points are non-science related. So when we dive into the science, I actually get a little bored with
uh,
it. But it's like, you know what? I'll research it for the podcast. I'll learn it. I'll figure it out.
it's all for our listeners. It's all for you.
It's all for you. Pay us back with a 5-star review.
We're doing it for the reviews, please.
It's a constellation sign. All right. Well, then it got me thinking. So when I did this research, I assumed it was Sheldon that was the Taurus
Yeah.
because, like I said, Penny made that comment. It was directed at Sheldon, so it's like, oh, he must be the Taurus. So as I read through this, think of Sheldon and think of Leonard, even though we just established that Sheldon is a Pisces.
And like off the top of my head, I think of Taurus as hard-headed and very bold, and that's kind of how Sheldon was being, which made me think it again was directed at him. But I'm curious, what did you come up with for Taurus?
Yeah, as I went through this, I feel like it was like 50-50. Like some of it reminded me of Sheldon, but a lot of it didn't.
Hmm.
And now as I read through it, I'll think about it as it relates to Leonard.
Uh,
All right. So a Taurus, and I found this on costarastrology.com. The symbol is the bull. The dates are April 19th to May 20th. Its element is earth. Modality is fixed, and its ruling planet is Venus. The general traits: just wants to cuddle, a homebody, all or nothing, no in between, wears the same outfit every day, hates big changes. All right, and the summary of them: normally satisfied with the way things are. When things fall apart, Taurians are calm, a rock of dependability. They tend to be grounded and logical, love routine, and committed to their own comfort. Appreciative of beauty, maybe not people. as I as I was thinking of Sheldon, I was like, yeah, beauty and other things like a video game, not so
mm-hmm.
much people, as we established with his sister. But then again, that's a whole other topic. Uh, they could be stubborn and bullheaded and set in their ways, but they are great listeners and very dependable. They're like they're like machines. Never tire and will inevitably overcome their obstacles because they've already prepared for every contingency. Bad qualities are they're overly determined to achieve material success. They are not immune to greed, can be apathetic towards others if motivated to achieve goals. Stubborn, they're not going to do something they don't want to do, and they have a hard time listening to others. I find that this describes Sheldon more than it describes Leonard.
I agree. I agree. But, I just thought of something that technically Penny says she was going to do everybody else's horoscopes and didn't because of Sheldon. So maybe she was just guessing he was a Taurus and didn't know his birthday.
That could be it. Like
Interesting.
she was just like, yeah, you're a typical Taurus.
Yeah, sounds like a Taurus to me, even
Yeah.
though he could have rebutted with, I'm not even a Taurus, but
Yeah.
that's probably not something he would know because he doesn't care. So, yeah, maybe there's an explanation here. I don't know.
I think he does know because he has an eidetic memory.
Ooh, that's
He
fair.
just doesn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, even acknowledge it.
Yeah.
It's beneath him.
But that's what I have on horoscopes.
Wonderful. Okay,
And I
so
also have something on birthdays too. I don't know if you want to dive into that.
go for it. Let's hear it.
I know, just like one after another. It's like the first half of this episode is boom, 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 and then the second half is like kind of nothing.
And then some stuff
Well,
happens and it ends.
yeah. So not to like walk all over your summary of everything, but we're at the point where Leonard is talking about how he grew up not celebrating his birthday
Yeah,
because that
yeah.
was never an achievement in his parents' eyes. Being born isn't an achievement.
And he mentions that he's never celebrated one. Howard says that he loves birthdays, and they kind of get into this fight of, is it worth celebrating? Is it not worth? And we see Sheldon is like, it's a waste of time, kind of, right? And Howard, I like his lines. He gets the French toast, he wears the birthday king crown, and he plays laser tag. Um, and she's like, oh, as a kid, and she's like, no, this was last year. And I'm like, I would enjoy a day of French toast and laser tag, but I don't know what's a birthday king crown.
I wonder if if his mom just got him a crown, like a toy crown.
Toy
Like, what's
crown.
your birthday? Because he is a mama's boy.
I can see
So,
that, but there's nothing wrong with French toast and laser tag. So,
did you go to my laser tag
oh
birthday?
yeah, I
Yeah,
remember
okay, yeah. I did it
that.
twice. Oh man, the first one was like so epic. It was when you were at the one when we were at the industrial park, right?
Yes, you're right. You did it outside one time and inside one
Inside,
time.
well, yeah. So the
Yeah.
outdoor one was so epic. I found this company that actually will drive to your location or a location of your choice and bring you all of the equipment. So at the time, I actually worked at a CrossFit like gym. So it's in an industrial park. So an industrial park on the weekend is empty. No one, like, all the offices are closed. So we were just running around the entire office park, just like playing laser tag.
It
And
was
I
like
encouraged everyone to stay away from the streets because we're flashing guns and everything like that. So I was like, you know what? Let's just stick to inside the park, everyone.
it was like a Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Like we're like running around these buildings, like where are they? I don't know. And we would run for like 10 minutes without seeing anybody, and then there would be somebody. It was great.
Yes. And I was well into my late 20s when I had that birthday party.
Amen.
Well, I looked into when did we start celebrating birthdays? Like, when did this turn into a thing? So I found this article in The Atlantic. It was not popularized with the masses until the 19th century, perhaps 1860 or 1880. At least this is when the middle class started celebrating. It wasn't until the 20th century when it became widespread tradition.
Mm.
In the past, it was for the rich and upper class. Think pharaohs or presidents or national heroes. People knew when their birthday was, but it just wasn't celebrated. This
So
all started
us,
with, yeah.
we're national heroes.
Yeah.
We do a podcast.
Yeah. 5-star reviews left and right.
It's our birthday.
Well, it all started with the kids. In the mid 19th century, people started having fewer children, so they were viewed less as an economic asset and more valued emotionally as a member of the family. So the rise of birthday celebrations was also part of a larger shift in the conception of time. So, so clocks in the pre-industrial age were rare and seldom accurate. And as the 19th century progressed, clocks and watches, or pocket watches, were becoming household objects. So people constantly knew the time. And as they knew the time, they were much more aware of the passage of time in their own lives. So birthdays offered a benchmarker for this. So a little bit of love and a little bit of logic in that one.
That makes sense. Because it was just a couple hundred years ago, right? I can't remember which century, but where the whole calendar had to shift from March to back to January, right? Because basically the calendar year had not taken into account leap days. And so after a
Oh,
couple hundred
yeah.
years, everything was off kilter, right? And they had to like just shift the calendar back 3 months or so because they're like, well, it's supposed to be winter and it's getting warm. What's going on? Well, we messed up a couple hundred years ago.
Yeah.
Things changed. So it makes sense that as time
Send
became
out your messengers. We're going back a month.
tell everybody we're falling back. It's
Send
daylight
a raven.
savings. Your light savings. I don't know. So yeah, as they knew more about time and got more accurate, that makes sense that they could see
Yeah. And
celebrating birthdays.
children back in the day were more of an economic asset, where it was more like we need children to work for the family. We need to raise money. We need to work the farms. We have a million kids. We can't celebrate all of them.
I was gonna say if you have 20 kids, 20 birthdays, that just gets old very quickly. So nobody gets a
Yeah.
birthday.
So then as they started having fewer kids, it's like, okay, I'm investing more into a singular child.
I'm gonna show I care about one of them.
Yeah. Maybe two. But don't push your luck, Junior.
Yeah. That reminds me, I had an ex who had a sister who has like 5 kids, 6 kids. And I go, yeah, that's a lot of time and money for birthdays. I'm just going to pick one. She's going to be my favorite, and she's the only one who's going to get a gift. Like, that's all.
Yeah. Well, the world actually did resist birthdays at first.
Oh,
Like they were very similar to Leonard's parents. Historically, there were a lot of birthday party poopers out there. And people frowned upon the celebration of birthdays because it was a self-centered and materialistic institution.
people don't like change. Well,
Yeah.
also, I mean, they're only looking at like a carrot cake without frosting and a really remedial version of cheesecake. So
Yeah,
they
there
just
you
needed
go.
more cake.
They needed better cake, and then they'd be all about it.
Right? They're like, wow, chocolate cake. This is a
Well, not
birthday.
chocolate cake if it's not if it's my office.
Yeah, if it's your office, yellow cake, apparently.
Yeah, apparently, maybe even a marble cake.
Maybe marble cake. On a good day, they'll take marble.
But yeah, they another reason why birthdays were frowned upon in the past was because it took attention from God and it turned their children into brats.
Mm,
Yeah, the birthday brat is a real thing.
that's fair. It's your day. You get to have, what's the song? It's your party. You can cry if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one last little cake nugget on birthdays of how we celebrate. The way we celebrate today is a mishmash of traditions. Cake can be traced back to the ancient Roman birthday rites, though some accounts indicate that the Americans used to be just as likely to celebrate with fruit. The candles appear to come from the aristocratic German birthday celebrations and date back at least several hundred years. And the expectation of wrapped gifts is a product of good old Western consumerism.
Oh, yeah. Capitalism. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, that's all I have on birthdays. And we're still in the opening scene. So
Right.
so many things to unlayer on this one, or to unwrap as a birthday
Unwrap.
gift.
I was thinking unlayer, like you layer the cake.
Ah. Unless it's an ice cream cake and you can't call it a cake.
Yeah, then it's not. It's just a lump of ice cream. Which, I mean, I'm not going to kick out of bed. I love ice cream. So,
Nope.
so Leonard mentions that the best birthday he ever had was one time he came home and there were a lot of people gathering at his house and he could smell German chocolate cake. And it turned out his grandpa died.
So sad.
I love that line. He goes, "What is kind of like a birthday?" And then, who is it? Howard, who says, "That sounds sad. You should hear about his senior prom."
Yeah.
And I think they talked about proms before, but I don't recall Leonard talking about his senior prom or anything too sad. Did you remember anything about this?
I don't remember that. I'm sure it was just like a little gut punch.
It might have just been when they were talking about what him. Maybe I'm just thinking about him writing the recommendation. No, writing the essay for the girl and helping her get into college, and then she
Yeah.
forgot who he was. So, That must be what I'm thinking. All right, so that was the opening scene. We made it. We made it through the opening scene, and now we're in the apartment hallway, and Leonard is going out to get dinner, and they make a point that Howard cannot have peanuts, which comes back up again. And Penny runs over to talk to Sheldon, talk to them about having a surprise birthday. And I do get 1 point here for being like Sheldon, because he's confused why Penny came over. And he specifically says, I don't care for chit chat. And, sometimes I feel that way. I deep down that people call him like, oh, I just called to shoot the shit or whatever. I'm like, why? Why? I don't care for chit chat. Tell me
You could
something
have texted
important.
me.
Yeah, exactly. Text me or wait until something important comes up. So, and I understand. I like talking to people, or I like catching up, and I like maybe
like scheduled,
yeah,
scheduled friend time.
Meaningful relationships, but just like, I don't know, talking about, so I had a sandwich today. Like, oh man, that is excruciating sometimes. Chit chat. Okay, so 1 point for Sheldon. And they talk about throwing a surprise party. And they mention that, or Sheldon says, how do you know he'll like it? He's never had one. And they get into the discussion, can you know you like or do not like something you've never had? And Howard says he knows he would like a threesome, even though he's never had one.
I can't
And
argue with that logic. So
that's fair.
Not decide with Howard on that one, but you know what? Sound logic.
There's some things maybe you can assume, and he mentions that Penny cannot be part of it. And right as he said that, I'm like, he's going to take that back. And he goes, just kidding. You can. Can you bring a friend? Knew Howard's personality. And then Penny blackmails Sheldon into having the surprise party. And I actually have I had a point going for Penny, because I feel like I could see myself resorting to blackmailing like that a little bit. She threatens to draw a picture on one of his comics, but not telling him which one. But it nullified the point, because I can also see somebody doing that to me, drawing on one of my movies or one of my books and not telling me which one. It would drive me crazy, knowing that there's just like a smiley face on one of my books, like, which one is it? And then I'd be looking through for, I have enough books, it would last me a couple months before I found it. But it would yeah, so I could see me going both ways with this. No point awarded, but both sides of the spectrum here. And so Sheldon agrees, because wow, yeah, he doesn't want that to happen. He understands blackmail. And we flash forward to Penny's apartment.
I love the evil stare that Sheldon gives Penny and the big smile that she gives him, that she bested him. I love stuff like that.
Got him for once, right?
Gotcha.
I'll draw a little face, and one of them, I'm not going to tell you which one. Madness. So yeah, they're in Penny's apartment. Raj and Howard are coming in with gifts. And they knock, but get the knock wrong, and they have a discussion about the knock. I didn't find that the greatest joke of the episode. But they come in and they start talking about presents. And I did a IQ/partial IQ on this.
On the specific gifts that they gave, or gifts in general?
The gifts they gave.
Okay, I did the same thing.
Same thing?
I'll let you go.
Okay. Raj got Alex Ross's Dark Knight statue. And this is a pretty iconic version of Batman, kind of like a gray and light blue cape and cowl, right? An older version that we know of Batman. And I found it going for about $250 to $350 on eBay per statue. So, going back 15 years or so, I'm guessing it'd probably be a little bit less, but still a pretty pricey gift. Very, very nice on Raj's part. And then Howard has gotten Leonard a copy of Finham's lectures on physics, and it's a little confusing because from what I saw, there are 3 volumes of this. It's not just one book. And he says that it's an autographed version, so I don't know if all 3 are autographed or if it's just one or if it's an anthology collection. But I did find that on average, these books go for about $35 ebook version and $50 for upwards to $50 for paperback version. So all 3 of them combined, I'm guessing would probably be around 150 and then a little bit more for the autograph because people are going to pay a little bit more, but at the same time this isn't like a huge supply and demand issue, so not a lot of people are caring about that autograph, but enough to. So I'm guessing that's probably about 250 as well. And also the no signature, I did find a hardcover version of one of the volumes on Amazon for about $100. So the hardcovers they increase quite a bit. And then
Hardcovers are nice.
I love that's if I get a book, I want it to be hardcover, but sometimes you don't have the option. And I'm guessing a nice sweater that Penny found would probably be about $50. 40 to
Well,
50.
there are fun geometric shapes on them.
That's true. Fun geometric. It's a thoughtful gift, right? She put imagination into it, I think she says.
Yeah.
So yeah, and with that said, there's a blurb on the lectures on physics, but from what I understood was that it's really a collection of information, kind of detailing what we understand about physics these days. I had the website pulled up. Yeah, what does it say? A discussion of his lectures. His lectures started off as an experiment, turned out to be hugely successful, spawning publications that have remained definitive and introductory to physics for decades, ranging from the basic principles of Newtonian physics through such formidable theories as general relativity and quantum mechanics. Friedman's lectures stand as a monument of clear exposition and deep insight. So that's straight from the blurb on Amazon's page trying to sell the book. And that's what I got for this point. What'd you get?
Nice. A little nugget on the Feynman
Feynman.
lectures is that they actually Feynman, yeah.
Yeah, I was saying Freeman, right? Freeman.
The Feynman lectures,
Feynman.
they were actually, it was originally presented to students at Caltech.
Mm.
So I'm guessing that these writers are more of celebrities in their world.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to admit this. I spent a little bit more time researching Alex Ross's Dark Knight sculpture more than I should have, because they said it was Alex Ross's definitive Batman, and I totally thought that was like a line of comics, like the definitive Batman.
Uh-huh.
With Marvel, they have like Amazing Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, Sensational Spider-Man. X-Men has X-Men, New X-Men, Uncanny X-Men. I thought this was the definitive Batman. So I was like hunting everywhere for that, only realizing I was like, oh, he meant that it was just Alex Ross's vision of Batman. I was like, well, I felt really dumb.
This doesn't exist. 2 hours later. Oh, wait.
Like, I don't get what's happening right now. Did they make an error, or am I just stupid?
-1 IQ point.
I know. We'll just have to take it away. And that's it.
That's it. Did you find about the same stuff I did with prices or anything? Nice.
Well, I didn't look at prices. I was more of like looking at what are they.
That's fair. And I kind of did prices too, because Sheldon then goes into his logic about not being a gift giver, right? And saying that it's kind of what's the word?
Pointless.
Pointless. I give you $50, you give me $50, and we keep doing this until one of us dies and one of us is $50 richer. And so I was kind of interested that Penny's gift was probably about $50, but Howard and Raj both, like, they kind of went above and beyond with the gifts. Yeah. So again, just a little bit of nugget with Howard there, that his personality is that he comes off creepy, but I do get the sense that he really cares about his friends and it was a thoughtful and probably a difficult to get gift as well.
Yeah, I think that was very thoughtful. Whereas Raj just had to go to the comic book store.
Yeah,
I think Howard actually had to do a little bit of hunting on that.
I'm guessing he might have had the books on hand, but I doubt it. I think he did some hunting. It was very,
An
very
actual
thoughtful.
autographed one. It's like wow.
And not that much time. I'm guessing yeah, it was the following Saturday, so he only had a few days to pull that together, and he made it happen. So yeah, he came through on that one. And so oh yeah, I like how I thought I put it somewhere in here, but maybe I didn't. No, I did somewhere. Oh, this is the second thing Howard does is tells Penny to tell Sheldon that it's a non-optional social convention. And Penny says it's a non-optional social convention. Immediately, Sheldon's like, "Okay, I get it."
Makes sense.
I like that Howard has learned this is just something you have to do, and this is how Sheldon works, and I'll work with it. So I kind of, he might not have been the one who figured out this line to use with Sheldon, but I appreciate that he understands that his friends are special and he can deal with them. He realizes he's special too. So
Yeah, he knows them very well.
he knows them very well, yeah, and is sensitive to their needs to some extent, as much as he can be. So they decide that Penny will take Sheldon out to get a gift. Howard will keep Leonard busy for a couple hours, and Raj will start the entertainment. And he mentions, he has to whisper it to Howard, what happens if guests come? And Penny's like, well, entertain them. And he whispers to Howard and says, what if pretty girls come? Well, stare at them and creep them out, right? I'm like, that's fair, that's fair. So, make them feel uncomfortable, I think she says. So Howard goes to Leonard's and is trying to get him to get off the couch, but Leonard is playing a kid with uh so immunity is compromised and is living in a bubble, and all he does is play Halo.
Yeah, he's playing against Bubble Boy.
Bubble Boy. And I didn't like the line where he goes, can't you do that later? And Leonard goes, not if you believe his doctors.
Yeah, I love that line too.
Like, no, he's gonna die later. So Howard says there's a new version of Blade Runner playing, and I did a little bit on this, but kind of found that there's probably wasn't a completely new version. Did you do any research on the versions of Blade Runner?
I made a note to actually research this to see if this was real, but I forgot to highlight it. So I always write my notes and highlight the things I need to go back, and I forgot to highlight it. So I totally missed this one.
That's I wanted to do more research on Tresling, but I made a mark saying real. I didn't put a circle of an IQ point, and so I forgot to do it. It was like the first note I had too, and I completely missed it.
On the top of the page.
Wow, we are lacking. But I looked at Wikipedia, and I also have this. Nobody can see it because it's a podcast, but it is the Blade Runner Blu-ray 5-disc complete collector's edition. I love this movie. I've always loved it, and I love the sequel too. But basically, we get there are 7 versions, but a lot of them seem very, very similar. And that there's like only a few scenes here and there that are different. We have the work print, the 1982 work print, that's 113 minutes. And I think this is like the shortest version. And then there was a sneak preview that in 82 that added 3 scenes. And those 3 scenes were, I believe, Ford's. Oh no, that was the next one. I didn't put the scenes down. I thought I did. I'll come back to it if I find them in my notes. I wrote kind of small. But we have after the sneak preview, we have the official U.S. release in 1982, and this had the Harrison Ford's voiceover. And I thought this was interesting because I believe the first time I saw this was without the voiceover. And then we have the international version in 1982 that was 117 minutes long, and I believe this is the one that is also known as the Criterion Edition, kind of like the what people came to know as the official version. And I believe it had a little bit more violence in it, a few more scenes here and there. And then we had a U.S. broadcast version in 1986 that aired on CBS at 114 minutes, and they cut some scenes out to censor it and make it more television friendly. And then 1992, a director's cut. That was an official director's cut that was okayed by everybody, including the director. Ran at 116 minutes. And this one was the one that took out the voiceovers. So I believe this was the first version I saw. And it had a unicorn scene. And it changed the ending a little bit as well, I believe. I have that in my notes. And that unicorn scene was pretty big because there's an ongoing question in this movie. Have you seen Blade Runner?
I saw it a long time ago. I think it was the director's cut that I
So
saw because I saw this maybe 10 years ago for the first time. And as you're listing off all these like time durations, it felt so much longer than 114 minutes. It felt like I think it's because it took several days for me to get through. I know this is going to sound like an oxymoron, but I really enjoyed it, but it was really boring to me at the same time.
it is a slow burn. It is, as far as like a sci-fi action movie, it's a slow burn. I think the second one is it felt even slower to me, but I love the visuals and I love the storyline. Both of them. But like one of the big things for the first one was whether or not Harrison Ford was a robot. And it never specifically tells you, but by adding the unicorn scene, and in the apparently the final cut version that was released in 2007, that's 117 minutes long, there was even more unicorn scene. Um, it gives a pretty significant hint that Harrison Ford is a robot, and you kind of have to be paying attention to the hints and the foreshadowing there. But in the original version, they have fewer hints that he's a robot, and the newer versions are kind of hinting at it more. And I believe that what is it? Yeah, it's Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott, the director, uh, was aiming for him to be a robot and a replicant, and was going to lead into the sequel, which was eventually made a couple years ago with Ryan Gosling, right? And the notion came up: could these robots eventually have children at some point, and how would that go over? And that's kind of the basis for the second one.
See, I haven't
So
seen the second one.
oh.
I should, but
It's a slow burn. It's probably going to take a couple days to get through, but I love it. And I really like there's this, I picked up in it this theme of you remember that show about what was her name? The woman in New York City who was pretending to be like an heiress to a billionaire or something. And
Anna Delevingne, or
yeah, where like
yeah,
her catchphrase is "You're not special," right?
yeah.
Like that's for me the theme of Blade Runner 2 is "You're not special, nobody's special." They do it a lot more artistically and not as bluntly, but that's the theme: nobody's special, right?
Yeah.
So I liked it.
Dude, I say that to my wife all the time. You're not special.
Not special. I said it to somebody who had not seen the show, and it did not come off as a joke. I'm like, wow, I am so sorry.
And
You're
you just made
very
an enemy
special.
for life.
Yeah. So I guess you're not coming to my birthday party.
No German chocolate cake for you.
No German chocolate cake.
You get old timey cheesecake.
So there may have been a version of this, but he says that like only a few seconds were added, and I wasn't finding anything to correlate with that. But I'm guessing he was talking about the final cut versus the director's cut.
Because you said that came out in 2007.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is 2008, so it could have been that one.
Yeah, or it could very well just be a joke because it's a kind of infamous for having so many different versions. Like I said, this set is a 5 disc set and has um, 5 different versions. It's weird because not every disc is a version. Like 3 versions are on one disc, and then 2 of the discs are like bonus features and making of stuff. So, um, yeah. Okay, so he's unable to get him to leave Halo, and it flashes over to the store, and Sheldon is getting Leonard a gift, and I like it. Where Penny goes, the DVDs are over there, and Sheldon goes, he doesn't need a DVD, he needs a DVD burner. And honestly, I think that would be,
That would be a great gift.
that would be a great gift. There was nothing wrong with that. I was thinking it's kind of expensive, but if Howard and Raj are pushing over $200 gifts. That's kind of in line with a DVD burner at that time, right?
Yeah,
I'm guessing. And Penny says, it should be something fun and imaginative. And he goes, oh, I know, a router. And in fact, specifically an 802.11n wireless router. And I did a little research on this because I was curious of where we are now and where we've been. So a little partial IQ here with routing. Did you do anything?
no, but I did something on connect switches,
Oh,
which is which will be mentioned a little later
later.
on. But the only thing that I could say is he wants to get him a router, and in my mind, I was thinking, is this a gift for Leonard or is this a gift for you?
It's kind of a mutual gift, right?
Yeah,
Everybody's
it's
going to
like
benefit.
everyone's going to benefit, especially Penny later,
Yeah.
which you'll see.
So, if you're unsure, the first wireless routing system was wireless A, then there was B, then there was G. And I remember getting into this in like the early 2000s on the level of G, which was supposed to be 54 megabits per second. And I remember, I think my first one was an Apple base station. Apple used to make their own wireless router, and it was not very good. It would lag, it would fall off, detach, or kick the computers off randomly. And sometimes, like, even like if you had a wireless phone and every time you turned it on, it would just kick off the router because it was on the same frequency, I guess, or something. Um, and so finally they updated to N in kind of, 2007, 2008. And that was supposed to be 450 megabits per second, but these are lab tests. So we know that it's not going to be that much in actuality. And then most recently, we have moved on to wireless AC, which is supposed to be 1,300 megabits per second, or roughly 162.5 megabytes per second in laboratory tests. So, in real world settings, when you have dogs running around and you have doors and you have walls and you have, I don't know, metal appliances running, you're not going to get 162.5 megabytes per second. But I think people usually get around 100 or something, or, upwards to 100, depending on where you are. So that's
Yeah, it
what I
sounds about
found.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. I love wireless AC now. I do prefer to be wired when possible. But I remember getting started with G. I never even did A or B, but G was it was a nightmare. So yeah, that's my partial IQ point on wireless routers.
Lovely.
What'd you get on switches?
So jumping ahead, I did some research on when Sheldon starts assisting all the other customers.
Yeah.
So the first, before the customer comes, he's looking at the two routers, and then Penny is trying to push him to make a choice, and she says, "What about that one?" And he mentions, "Oh, is it because of the two extra Ethernet ports?" He's like, "Yeah, totally." And then he responds by saying he doesn't need that. He has a 640 connect switch. So that I believe he's referring to as an Ethernet switch,
Yeah.
which is it connects essential devices like laptops, computers, and serves to a local area network. And they're generally more reliable than Wi-Fi. in general, there's better performance, higher bandwidth. Each port can handle varying bandwidth depending on the needs, as opposed to hubs that have to share. I don't know what the 640 refers to, though, because I don't think that's the amount of connections, because usually, even on corporate level devices, there's usually only 32 or 128.
I would
So
guess
I'm
that
not
that's the speed, 640 megabytes per second,
megabytes. Yeah, okay, that makes more sense.
because they
And
weren't quite
then,
at a gigabyte yet, I don't think, for Ethernet speeds. But it would make
yeah,
sense that if they're running on 450 megabits per second for in, then the switch would be wired and faster.
but basically it's a hard connection
Yeah,
rather than wireless. So it's good that they're getting a router. It may be inferior at the time, but it is that 2007, 2008, that was like that time to get wireless. Like
yeah,
that was like a major thing. I remember
jump
getting
up.
my first router too, and I was like, whoa, this is incredible.
I use a switch because I have the router with my modem, and the router feeds into my wall, and I actually have it wired down to my entertainment system and have a switch there to plug into like my receiver to play wireless music, my Xbox, my PlayStation, just to make sure everything's wired, just because it is a little bit more stable of a connection. Well, it's quicker too. Still,
It's so much faster. Oh my
yeah.
god.
So yeah, I prefer that, but it's a little bit more work and effort to get the cables in and wire it like that.
I remember I was trying to do this update on my PlayStation, and I was on Wi-Fi. It was like
Mm-hmm.
it was going to take like an hour. And I was like, "Well, I want to play now," so I just grabbed this long Ethernet cord and I just plugged it straight into the modem, instantaneous.
And you're
I
ready
was
to
like,
play. Thank you.
"Ready to play."
It reminds me, I saw some sort of picture of somebody complaining on line about their barbecue grill updating, or their smoker updating on Thanksgiving, saying Thanksgiving's ruined. Wow.
I
Uh,
could see that happening.
so we're kind of flashing back and forth between the store and home and the apartment. And at the apartment, Howard pretends to eat a peanut bar. And I noticed this when he did it, that he takes half of it and puts it in his back pocket. And I was kind of wondering, like, why didn't he just throw it away or get rid of it? Like, that was kind of weird. But I kind of wonder that from the beginning, he might have thought he might need it later on. That he was kind of storing it as just
The
in
fail
case,
safe.
fail safe.
Yeah.
And he does end up needing it. And the question is, uh, does does he use it for selfish reasons later on? And I would say yes, but at the same time, he kept it with him. So there's some part of him that was like, I'm doing this for him as much as myself, and we'll get to that. But I like pointing out that right now he does keep it with him, and they have to go to the ER because he claims that he's suffocating, he's not swelling up. And back at the store, like you said, Sheldon starts helping other customers. Well, first he mentions that he had a horrible birthday experience where he wanted a titanium centrifuge, and his parents got him a dirt bike. And he's
The
like,
nerve of them.
"Who
Ugh.
could ever want a dirt bike?" And Penny goes, "Every boy, right? Every adolescent boy." Although honestly, I think I'd be too scared of a dirt bike. I think it would freak me out. Like, I remember riding four wheelers as a kid, and I had like a panic attack when they're like, "You're gonna have to shift gears." I'm like, "How do I know when to shift gears?" And they're like, "You'll feel it and hear it." I'm like, "But what if I don't? I'll break the engine." And they're like, "Get off the four wheeler ride." I'm like, okay,
That's great training right there. You'll feel it.
you'll feel it.
You'll
What?
figure it out. You know, it's like a giraffe walking as a newborn.
Yeah.
It figures it out.
You figure it out. Fly or die type mentality,
Yeah.
right? And then somebody comes up to him and asks him about FireWire versus USB. And I did a partial research on this because I remember FireWire being the big thing when iPods first came out. FireWire was developed by Apple in like the early 90s. And apparently it's still in use somewhat, but not like very much of on a consumer basis. But I remember iPod had it, my first iPod, my first handheld camera had it, and it was actually faster than USB, which came out in 96. but we have developed USB to 3.0, which has become the standard. And this is like the little USB that we now use for almost everything. Although, to be fair, Apple did progress to laptops. In fact, my laptop right now only has USB-C 3.0 uh, ports, and they have backtracked on that to put back in older USB modules, units, so that you can have more
Are they
universal
really?
access. Yeah, from what I've heard, they've backtracked because not enough people are using the USB-C quite yet.
Yeah, the Thunderbolt.
Yeah, but
The
that is kind
Thunderbolt's
of
nice. It actually is a lot quicker. It is a lot slicker. I do love that it's actually more universal in the sense that you could flip it upside down, and there really isn't no right side up.
if
But yeah, but it's a lot smaller too. It is nice, but I do miss USB because we're just not there yet to just transition.
yeah, if everything was more on at that level, I would love it, but it's just a little too confusing right now. And having all the dongles, like I have to carry like 3 dongles with me to for whatever I may want to plug in, a USB A or B, or an HDMI, or a lightning plug for my cell phone, or whatever. It's all sorts of weird
Too many
stuff.
plugs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's too
too
many
many
plugs.
things.
Too many plugs. I just want one. Oh. And then we flash back to the ER, and Howard is having no luck with the nurse, right? And so he's like, "Can you just get me in and give me a band-aid?" And she's like, "No, fill out this form." And he goes, I found this line, like, I'm surprised it got aired, but let me introduce you to the man who freed your people.
I flagged that one too. It's like, whoa, that would not fly these days.
Right? I was kind of surprised. And it's Howard's character that he's not very he's socially awkward. He doesn't understand, but that's offensive. And it was
And
also
this is the I wanted to point out with this episode with Howard. I will say, like, if he just peeled back the onion layer of creepiness of just being like a perv, I feel like he would actually do very well romantically because he's actually very intelligent. He's musical. He speaks multiple languages, and he's actually just very confident like in everything that he like kind of he can just go up to anybody and just have a conversation and just kind of be himself and everything like that.
yeah.
I was just kind of noticing, I was like, man, if you just stop being such a creepy asshole, you would actually do just fine.
That makes a lot of sense. I think you're right. That he has a lot of good qualities. A lot of creepy qualities, but
Yeah, he's
yeah.
just kind of like he's creeped forward. He needs to tone it down.
Yeah.
Which Penny even mentioned in like a previous episode, like, dude, you need to tone it down.
Tone it down. Tone it down.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But I was really quick. You mentioned up the nurse. It's the same nurse that was in episode 1.
oh, it is.
Yep, same
Nice.
nurse. The actress's name is Vernie Watson. I don't think we did a deep dive on the first episode, but she's done mostly guest work on shows. But her major roles right now are Bob Hart's Abishola and General Hospital, where she plays a nurse.
Of course.
Yeah.
Nursing experience. But yeah, I found this not just offensive because of the line, but it was only $5, right?
Yeah, I know. It's like
And then a quick partial IQ. She says maybe it was Franklin and 5 of his twin brothers, which would have been. She was saying for $600, she would consider it. So I like the fact that she's like, I do have a price. It's just a lot more than what you're offering. I'm like, that's fair. $600 is for a Band-Aid, basically, is all he's asking for. And
just
then
to bump them up in line.
Leonard comes in and says, "You're looking okay. Let's just get you some Benadryl." And he's like, "No, my tongue is like a brisket, right?" And so he's like, "We have to stay." But I thought this was funny because I felt bad for this. I used to bring like snacks in for the last day of class, kind of as a celebration every quarter. And I stopped doing it for 2 reasons. One, this specific incident, and two, COVID, right? Made things kind of awkward with sharing snacks like that or having an open container of snacks. But but I brought in cookies, and in very small print, it said not just made in the same facility, but says contains walnuts. Very, very small. And I thought they were just chocolate chip cookies and didn't even mention it to the class that they may or may not have nuts in them. And a girl took a bite, and then her friend said really quickly, I think those have nuts in them. They taste like nuts. And she's like, they do. And it was like highly allergic. And so we were talking about it. And she's like, yeah, I can feel my tongue kind of swelling up. And so she went to the bathroom and made herself regurgitate it, and came back and took a couple Benadryl. And she's like, I have an EpiPen, but if you use those,
save that for an emergency. Like,
yeah,
it's really expensive.
They're expensive, and it's a direct trip to the hospital. You don't just take it and like, okay, I'm better now. It's like you take it and then you go to the hospital, and like it's a whole thing. And I called security because I'm like, I want to make sure this is documented. And she's like, I didn't eat that much of it. I took 2 Benadryl. I'm feeling better already. I'm just going to go home and sleep off the Benadryl. And she was fine. But I was terrified. The security guard's like, we should really document this. And she's like, no, I'm fine. And she was fine. But then she did sleep for like 24 hours because Benadryl knocks you out. But yeah, so apparently it's good to have Benadryl if you have any allergies, or in case somebody does have an allergic reaction, that it can be helpful. It's not as good as an EpiPen or a hospital, but still good to have on hand, I guess. That it made sense when he said, let's run and get some Benadryl. You might be okay. But of course, I am not a doctor, and this is all terrifying stuff. So seek medical help if you need it, or if you're worried at all.
And if you have a food allergy, don't be afraid to just ask. Even if it seems like it's something that's blatantly not in the product, it never hurts to ask.
Yeah. That
when it comes to like your life, don't be afraid to like look foolish. Like, does this have nuts in it? Or like, you never know. Like the secret ingredient of someone's famous cookies could be like almond extract or something like that.
Exactly. And you would never know, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that terrified me. I was like having heart palpitations or something. And be like, no.
I have to give her an A.
Yeah. And I never gave treats out again. I'm like, okay, that ends the...
it's so sad how one person ruins everything.
Right? No. Just because they almost died. Oh, man. All right, so, where... he calls.
We're in the hospital. Yeah.
Hospital, yeah. He calls Penny. He's like, "This is we're struggling here," and she's like, "Just if you take care of it, I have 3 friends that I can hook you up with: a hot former fat girl with no self-esteem, a girl who punishes her dad by sleeping around, and an alcoholic 2 shots away from letting you wear her like a hat." And I like this because it comes up later. Raj is wearing a girl like a hat, right?
Yep.
And Howard, instantly eats the rest of the peanut bar, the granola bar. He's like, okay, I'm doing this for you, little buddy. And although he says that, and it's a very selfish move, I stand by that he kept the bar with him. So I don't think it was all completely selfish that he was doing it because he could take one for the team as well.
I say 70-30.
70-30. That's fair. There's still 30 there, right? Still 30 there. And then at the store, Penny says, Sheldon, we have to go. And he's like, why? And she's like, because we called security, right? It's like, while the party, we're running late, but also he called security. And finally, he tells the lady he's on the computer trying to look up if they can order something for a woman, a customer, and he's like, fine, good luck, right?
Yeah. You're on your
own. And then he says, a kid could hack your computer system. Your password's 1234. And so I did a quick IQ point on this because I was interested. Did you do anything on this?
No, I thought about doing it, but then I didn't, because I feel like these days everyone has much more unique passwords. But I do remember that movie Hackers.
That's something I looked up too, because I remember that's what I thought of.
It makes me think of every time, so I'll take it away.
Hackers, like my go-to was that the 4 most common passwords according to this movie are God, love, sex, and secret. And I have met people who've had their passwords as God before. I don't think I've ever met sex or secret. I think somebody had it as love before. But I'm kind of thinking that they may have made that up for the movie, although it's happened. I went to CNBC.com and found that 1234 was actually the 12th most common password on their list.
12. Wow.
Yeah, and that most of them are some combination, but the number one is password. Just straight up password for your password is number one. Then it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then there's like some, for most of them, some range of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9. It's just how many numbers you have. But
And this
for
article is still like recent, so like these are the most common like now.
I think it was a few years ago.
Oh wow, but still.
So I should double check that. I didn't put down a date. Number 4 was guess. Number 5 was QWERTY. 6 was a variation of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 7 was 6 1s, and I was really curious about this. Why a password would be 6 1s as opposed to 4 1s or 5 1s or 9 1s, right?
Hey, that extra digit makes it a little bit more complex.
Yep. 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 9 was COL, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not sure
Like
what.
enough, yeah. I can't believe enough people did the same thing. COL one two
Yeah,
three
if
four five six.
that must mean something that's not clicking with us. If you guys at home are listening, know what that means. Feel free to chime in. It's probably something very straightforward. That
Oh, Google is not telling me anything.
darn you, Google.
Yeah,
10 was
community of love. Is it short for colic?
colic.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
10 was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 11 was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 12 was just 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically, if you try combinations of 1, 2, 3, 4, and between that and 9, you have a pretty good chance of guessing a password.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Okay, so that was my tidbit on passwords. We launched back into the ER, and Leonard's like, "Nurse, we need help. My friend's having an allergic reaction." She's like, "Nah, he's just faking." And then Howard comes up, and this cracked me up. He's like, "Help me!" His whole face is swollen up, and yeah, he's about to die. And she's like, "Oh no!" And jumps in on helping him, and we flash forward to them walking home, and he's looking quite a bit better. His lips are still a little swollen. I kind of think he'd probably be a little bit more swollen still, but a couple hours have gone by, so he's gone down. And they talk about they sure do test you a lot when they're afraid of a lawsuit. And he's like, "Did I really need a colonoscopy?" Well, first of all, I don't think he would have been able to get a colonoscopy, because to get those, you have to like purge yourself like the night before. You have to fast and eat, like, drink a laxative, like really, really fun stuff to be cleared out. So I think that was a joke, but I
They're
found it
just
funny.
looking for peanuts up his butt.
Yeah, you got any more peanuts up there? And Leonard mentions, I thought you were faking it for a surprise party. He's like, "Wait, is there a party?" And he's like, "Yeah." They walk in, and Penny and Sheldon are asleep, and Raj is singing shirtless by himself.
Yep,
And
true colors.
he goes, "People left a couple hours ago." And then that's the last scene, except for the ending where they are watching the phone video. And again, Raj is wearing a girl on his shoulders, and he's talking to everyone because she's feeding him alcohol, and mentions that there's a girl taking off her shirt. We don't see anything, but Penny and Leonard are watching the video, and Penny leans in and kisses Leonard, wishing him a happy birthday. And I underline this, that it is on the lips, and she does linger there, that it's more than just a small peck. So, wah, wah, wah. A little something, something.
Things to happen.
And he gets up and says, "When's your birthday?" And that's the peanut reaction.
We did it.
I like that episode.
Yeah, it was a fun one. I really liked all the characters in them. I liked the plot of the episode.
I like Howard walking up to the nurse, "Help me!" Probably shouldn't have found that as funny as I did, but for what Howard puts other people through, I'm like, eh.
Yeah, he'll be fine. All right, so what's your tally at?
My tally, we had the 1 point that negated each other, so we have gone up to still at 18 being like someone else, and we are at 21 me being like Sheldon.
All right, catching up. I guess we'll find out what happens at the end of season 1.
Yeah, one more episode.
Yep, we're down to the last episode. We're at the season 1 finale next time. Episode 17, The Tangerine Factor. So we will record that next time.
It's funny, I think it's pretty cool that we're actually ending the year with the last episode. So we're going to be like kind of on a yearly stream with these. And
yeah,
I have like enough pages for, I might have to add a few extra pages, but I'm like almost at the end of my notebook.
Oh, nice.
Too.
Are you going to buy a new notebook then?
I am for the next season. Try to do a season per notebook.
Hell yeah.
Right?
Well, every season here is longer though.
To be fair, I did have to rip out like 20 pages or so because I had used it for other notes here and there. And I'm like, well, I have this notebook. I'll just rip out the first 20 pages because they're not really in use.
Okay.
And use the rest of it.
You should have enough then.
I'm thinking I will. I'm hoping.
Yeah, I'm still on the digital thing. I'm on my Microsoft OneNote. Nice.
I probably should be doing that because, as you can tell, I lose notes. I can't even read my own handwriting half the time. But it's something about writing it while I'm watching it works with my mind. I feel like if I was typing stuff up, I would, I don't know, maybe it would work just fine. But it seems like I would maybe get distracted or something. Like, what was I doing?
What's happening? What's happening on Instagram?
Yeah.
What's on YouTube right now?
What podcast should I listen? Oh, I'm doing a podcast. That's right.
All right. Well, any last minute things on this episode?
That's all I have. Looking forward to the season finale.
Yep. Next time we'll have the season finale. And then the episode after that, Ryan and I will do a season 1 recap. And then we might have a bonus episode where we'll talk about the Lost pilot.
Oh, yeah.
I think we'll be able to just have to go through YouTube clips on that one. I don't think the full episode... We'll have to hunt around, but I'm not sure if the full episode is available anywhere.
It's like the Blade Runner super extended final cut version.
Yeah. Extra 8 seconds.
Extra 8 seconds.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Please remember to leave us a review. We're also on Spotify, Apple, and Stitcher. Follow us on Instagram. We're at Theoretical Nonsense Pod. Email us at theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com. And we'll see you next time as we discuss the season 1 finale, The Tangerine Factor. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
This was Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD necessary. Our intro and outro music is by Alex Scroll, and our logo is by John Kim. Thanks for listening.
The raspberry odd juice.